Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Wild Chat Facts. I am Ryan. That over there is Maria. And today is going to be all about the cute, cuddly, adorable, yet ever so slow-moving sloths. Mar, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was a lot of fun to research sloths because I've had a lot of encounters with them. And I'll tell you more stories about it in the future or later in the
Okay.
in the video. But what I found amazing is that sloths, they actually have an extra neck vertebrae, which allows them to move their head almost like the movie The Exorcism.
Yes.
Exorcist. So they allow the head can move 270 degrees, which looks just ever so scary. So anyway,
Okay.
I loved it.
So I think we need to start with the basics. So some people don't know. There's two-toed sloths. There's three-toed sloths. And what you're counting when you're counting is actually their front claws. Back claws are 3 for everybody. And the two-toed sloths
Free
are
for everybody.
3 for everybody. Everybody gets 3. But the two-toed sloths are actually a little bit bigger. And the funny thing is, they're actually not related. Even though they look very, very similar, they're an example of a divergent evolution where you get two animals that basically evolve almost the same, even though they're not related, just fitting their environments.
Like
And
a
because
crocodile and an alligator.
kind of, yeah, exactly. And because of that, you get some really interesting differences between the two. Two-toed sloths are actually when you think about sleeping, and they talk about how sloths sleep all day, they're mostly nocturnal. And they're bigger, so they kind of burn more energy, which they don't take in a lot because they eat leaves, and their diet isn't very like energy nutrient dense. But three-toed sloths actually move around a lot more. You'll see them moving sometimes during the day and at night. So, and then every time you hear that, oh, sloths sleep umpteen hours a day, I found that they actually did the studies on zoo sloths. So obviously they don't have anything else to do, so they're sleeping more. Even zoo elephants sleep more than wild elephants. So it's kind of a myth that sloths sleep as much as they do because they did the studies in captivity instead of in the wild, where they did find that three-toed sloths in the wild actually don't sleep that much. I have the number. I'll get to it as we kind of move down. Oh,
Nine,
nine and a
nine,
half hours.
9 hours.
Yeah. So they're actually very, very different animals. So as we move on, we'll kind of make some differentiations. They're not very, very, very different, but they're not the same. It's not like, oh, one's got an extra toe
No,
and
you
the
can
other.
actually see them when you look at them. They do look slightly different coloration wise and things like that. So it's like I said, crocodiles and alligators. They do have a size difference. They do have a little bit of behavior difference. But if you don't know, you won't notice. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah.
But they're extremely adorable. Yeah.
Hmm.
So okay, you said probably about 20 of my facts right there and then.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to give everybody a breakdown so they kind of knew what we were working with, and then we could get into the fun stuff.
No, but what's interesting is one of the reasons why the discrepancy about the toes and people think it's just the feet, like two toes sloth, and people think, oh, it's the toes. Well, what happens is in Spanish, it came from Spanish. Perezoso de dos dedos will be the sloth, two finger sloth. So when they translate it to two toe. So that's
Okay.
where the name came from. Because
But also
dedos
lazy.
means fingers.
Yes, but doesn't perezoso mean lazy also?
Perezoso, well, this is what the only animal that actually is named after one of the seven deadly sins.
Ah, okay. So it's not lazy. It's just it's sloth. Basically, translates the same way in Spanish. Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
It does translate to lazy. It does translate to lazy. It
Which is
just
sloth. Okay.
exactly.
All right. Okay.
So there, I give you like 7 facts. Your turn.
Fantastic. All right, guys. We're 4 minutes in, and we're good. No, just kidding.
Okay, we're done. Thank you. We'll move very slowly.
I always like the facts of like the fun facts.
Yes.
But I think when we start getting into animals in the future that people don't know as well, I think it is important because we don't have photos of them and stuff like that other than the thumbnail. So it is interesting to give a little breakdown of the animal.
And I
But
do have sometimes pictures of them on me.
yes. Maria has paraphernalia of some of the animals, so we can,
I do. Not that you can see my necklace, but it is a sloth.
Gotcha. We believe you. We believe you. All right, so let's get into some of the fun stuff. I thought this is interesting that they actually can slow their heart rates down. And we've talked about this with alligators and crocodiles, to where they actually can slow down their metabolism. They don't have to eat as much. Well, sloths actually slow down their breathing to a point where they can actually stay underwater for 40 minutes at a time. So as they slow down their heart rate, they need to breathe less. Now they can be underwater, and they're actually very good swimmers. They kind of propel themselves in like a doggy paddle like fashion. And they move 3 times faster in the water than they do on land, which isn't saying a lot because they don't move very fast on land. But there's been a lot of occasions that they've seen three-toed sloths actually just dropping directly out of trees into the water. So
yes, I read about that.
Yeah, instead of climbing down the tree, which takes them forever, they just kind of just flop on into the water and then they can go.
But speaking of the amazing breathing capabilities of sloth, or lack thereof, sloths are so strong. They're built to be so strong that there have been cases of sloths that have passed away that they're still attached to the trees. I mean, it shows us how incredibly adapted these animals are to living in their conditions they live in or on.
And I wonder if it's the same thing as birds, where they have that tendon that kind of locks. If you guys ever see birds, they'll sleep on the wire and they have a tendon that locks in their foot, and that's what keeps it closed.
No, these actually do it on their own. It's not a tendon.
Muscle. Okay.
Yeah, because they manipulate it really well. They manipulate it really well. And yeah, some people think that sloths are dumb because they sometimes confuse their hands for a branch. That doesn't really happen that often, and it could be fatal, of course, if you confuse a branch. But no, they do manipulate really well their muscles. They're just super strong.
I thought it was interesting because I came across the fact that basically that like they're built to fall. Like part of how sloths fight is they're intentionally trying to knock each other out of the tree when they fight. So there's sloths that can fall like 100 feet and still be fine. Like their bodies are built in such a way that, because sometimes they do mistake their arm for a branch, or when they fight, they're trying to knock each other out of the tree, that they are literally, their bodies are built to fall to the ground and still survive. I mean, they're not going to land on their feet like cats.
They're not designed for it.
But they don't look like very durable animals. They just look cute and cuddly and a little lanky. And if you think of that in a human, you're not thinking that, you know, lanky just doesn't like hold up well in a long fall.
That's true. It is fascinating how they can really withstand injuries. Like they still get hurt, but they can withstand them. Another thing I found amazing about sloths, besides their slow moving, is that they actually have done some looking for it. Like I want to say it, but I can't find it. I'll tell it to you anyway. They actually have found they have in their fur, because they move so slow, they develop different animals, algae, and things like that grow in their fur. So studies are starting to investigate what that algae does, and actually they're finding that it could be very medicinal as well for us humans. So it could actually be really, really medicinal for us as well as for them, because not only do they camouflage from the things they grow, but they also can eat from it.
Yeah, I found when I was looking around, they had a lot of like beetle and like insect colonies and stuff within their fur, and they were thinking that the insects actually latch onto them because there's a lot of, we talked about it in the rainforest video, if you guys go over there to Undiscovered Worlds, but how there's just tons of beetles and insects living in the trees in the Amazon and in the other regions that you would find sloths in. And basically they hitch a ride, so they get nutrients out of the algae. They get somewhere to stay that's warm, and then on the rare occasion, I forgot what it is.
Once a week.
Do you have the time? How often they go down the tree to go to the bathroom?
Once a week. I do. I have it. It's about once a week.
So when they hitch a ride, after they do their business, the beetles can climb off of the sloth, lay their eggs. So now they have a place for their eggs to be warm. They have nutrition, so they're like created this entire ecosystem built around the sloth and riding it. Yeah, it was very interesting to find, because especially tying together that fact of all the beetles and insects that live in one individual tree in the Amazon, and then kind of taking that over to the beetles and the sloths and then everything else, like you realize how interconnected everything really is once you get into jungles and forests and stuff.
It's so beautiful. It truly is. Everything is so well placed. Now, I had experience. I went to Roatan, and they have a lot of animals that they're rehabilitating and things like that. And they had a couple of monkeys inside a cage. Well, a sloth was climbing outside the cage at a very fast speed, as fast as they could move, which is like 13 feet a minute. Like they move pretty slow. And the monkey was getting super upset with the sloth because the sloth was invading. And it was so funny because the monkey kept trying to bite, but what is biting is biting its long claw. So the sloth kept just doing this, going back, doing this, while the monkey was going literally bananas. It was a spectacle.
Yeah, you want to talk about two different temperaments of animals. Monkeys can be pretty high strung, especially when they get nervous or angry. Sloths are just like same pace all the time.
I've actually got bitten by both of them.
Really?
Yeah.
What's a sloth bite like?
Well, I was feeding them lemons. It was a two toe sloth. I was feeding them lemons and I was talking. Of course, I was talking and I wasn't paying attention. So I had lemon still in my hand, and he went to kind of nibble at my thumb, and that was. Yes. Of course, I had plenty of time to remove my finger of the voracious herbivore.
But you still got bit, so you're the only person I know whose reflexes are slow.
No, I didn't. No, it didn't latch, but still, you feel the.
Okay.
It was a gentle nibble.
Right. Okay. All right.
And then the monkey, I was a kid and I was playing with it.
Gotcha. So I found an interesting story about a mischievous sloth who actually managed to sneak his way into a closed restaurant. And he was looking around for a late night snack, I'm assuming. And he maneuvered his way into the place and basically explored a bit, opened some stuff up, and then fell to the floor. And when he hit the floor, it basically alerted the cafe security. Because I guess he must have been moving so slow that when he was watching the camera, they couldn't even notice anything in the room was moving.
Yeah, because probably the motion sensors, or maybe it was in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So they didn't.
But when he hit the floor, it basically alerted the security system to that somebody was in the room. I don't know how.
My God.
Like slowest robber ever. How do you break into a building as a sloth? And they're not tiny. It's not like they're gonna like squeeze through a crack like some animals could.
No, yes, exactly. Like there's some like rats and cats and many other animals are super mega agile, but sloths.
Well, not even agile. We saw that one cat video where he like slid under the crack of the door.
Yes, that's one I was thinking.
Yeah. What was that? That was the construction site terrors one. We wanted to prove the points of how they could get into anywhere. Yes.
Cat burglar. So this is the sloth burglar.
Yes, sloth burglar. Yes.
No, we need to add another one of the 7 sins to it.
Okay.
Greed. The greedy sloth.
Okay. All right.
Or the glutton, whatever, it works. But the most interesting thing I found out, this to my brain. Millions of years ago, there was actually aquatic sloths. Like, yes. The ancient sloths that live in the ground, they ended up evolving denser bones, allowing them to dive into the waters for seagrass. So that's, they had denser bones. And they call them like amphibious, and they were described in Peru. Like there are a couple of species in Peru and Pacific sloths, and they were describing like their bodies were slightly different. They almost looked like what's the name of that animal?
The images I've seen always look like almost like bears. They just like funky faced bears.
Yeah, they look really weird. So anyway, they had jaw tips and limb bone shapes like a sea lion. That's the animal I was looking for.
Okay.
Almost like a sea lion. That's the word I was looking for.
Interesting. Yeah, there was a lot of different species of giant sloth, and we've talked about this in a lot of videos before, how the only reason the avocado is still around is because that's basically, I mean, that's a seed, guys. So the way seeds get spread is usually by birds or squirrels, or can you think of any animal that eats and hides seeds currently that would handle an avocado seed? There aren't any. They came from a time back when there was very, very large animals around. And let me see if I can find it really quick, because one of the last ones was actually on Cuba. It was one of the last surviving like giant sloths, and it passed away. Basically, it went extinct about 100 years before they started building the pyramids. And we've talked about this before, where the mammoths were still alive on a small island while they were building the pyramids. So that era of giant animals was definitely still going on while human beings were around. And we've talked about this in other videos. It is a myth. There were no human beings. There were no cavemen hanging out with dinosaurs. So get that one out of your brain. Humans and dinosaurs did not come anywhere near existing at the same time in the timeline. But there were these giant sloths and mammoths and stuff around still back in the early days of human civilization, not just like development of humans. Like there were cities and still these giant animals around.
I have a story called the Mapinguari.
Okay.
The Mapinguari, this comes from Brazil, and this is kind of scary. If you can think of a sloth being scary. I know we talked about in the drop bear in Australia, they come up like the koala with teeth and is supposed to eat you. Okay, we got to come up with the sloth one from Brazil. And so there was a shaman. There was once a shaman who discovered the key of immortality thousands of years ago. He angered the gods and was severely punished because of his discovery. And he was forced to wander like a beast for the rest of his life. And that's the Mapinguari. So they actually say that there are modern sightings that describe the Mapinguari or also the giant sloth. So they think this giant sloth, who you just mentioned, the Megatherium, and there are actually a couple more species, is supposed to be the Mapinguari. So the cryptozoologists speculate that it could be a Megatherium from the Ice Age, and supposed to smell really horrible, and it can knock a man unconscious. So be careful. If you go to the Amazon, you may actually encounter a giant sloth who's not a sloth, but an ancient human turning to beast, the Mapinguari.
But much like Maria getting bit, if you are slow enough to not dodge its swing, your reflexes. That's all I gotta say.
So if Maria tells you run, you can probably just walk.
Yeah, if there's a race between a Mapinguari and like Bigfoot, I think Bigfoot's winning that one, and he don't move too fast either that we've seen. So
I don't know. They're gigantic. I wouldn't mess with a Yeti.
All right.
Speaking
that's
of
a snow
Yetis.
one though. So that's like a snow Bigfoot. So we're not into trivia time, but I'm going to throw one in as we go down the list because I don't want to forget it. Do you guys want to take a guess out there, and then we'll let Maria take a swing at it? What animals, current animals, sloths are most closely related to? And when we say this, we mean like the split from their common ancestors was most recent. And I don't know if this fact is off of two-toed sloths or three-toed sloths. So that one I apologize for. But what other animal currently living are sloths most closely related to?
A dolphin.
A dolphin.
Here's the reason why. There's a reason. The reason I said that, actually a sea lion, is because of the story I just mentioned to you about the evolution of the sloth that used to live in the ocean. So I'm wondering if there is some serious craziness going on there. So I just went with complete marine.
Okay. All right. No, both of these animals start with an A. They are A animals. They are also not very fast-moving animals either. It would be the armadillo and anteaters. They kind of look like anteaters. I mean, minus the nose and the tongue. They've got the slow furry thing going on. So.
And the claws, if you look at,
yeah.
So this is very good because they were actually talking about different sloths. There are a couple of species of them, and they're really good at digging.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you see an anteater, their claws are slightly similar.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, I guess correctly.
Yeah, dolphin. Yeah.
It makes it way more fun that way, my opinion. But there actually is a story of tunnels being dug by sloths. So what you're saying in South America, there's some really large tunnels that were discovered in the 1930s and had no explanation. There was no geological explanation. They were very smooth and very fresh looking. So they thought, well, perhaps maybe early humans dug them, but there was no evidence of that. They were unexplained until 2017. That's not that long ago. Well, they discovered that these tunnels are known to be revealing lots of information about the animals that made them and who dug them. And it showed that the claws on whoever dug them was somebody who was 2 meters high or 6.6 feet tall. So they came up with the idea that it could have been giant sloths who did this. And yeah, 100 feet long. So when you said the stuff about the anteater, I'm thinking,
yeah,
of course,
yeah,
of course, dolphins. Of course.
So I had joked about the race between the sloth and the Bigfoot, but there's actually an interesting Bigfoot theory out there. Most theories kind of tie Bigfoot to like one of the great apes that went extinct and stories that have been carried down, or gorillas, or all these other things. But there's actually a theory that says that Bigfoot might actually be a member of the superorder Xenanthra, which is actually the same superorder that sloths belong to. And we've already talked about giant sloths. And if you see images and trees and stuff that people draw on some of the research that they've done, the giant sloths could actually walk on 2 feet. It wasn't their normal mode of locomotion, but they could reach up into trees. They could walk on their back feet. So they're thinking that mixed with the fact that sloths, we already talked about, kind of only go to the bathroom like once a week, could also be a rationale for why we don't ever find Bigfoot droppings, because they very rarely go to the bathroom.
And they dig him, and they actually dig him.
Yep. So if you use their same number 2 strategy, then that would cover the excuse of why we haven't found any droppings or anything from Bigfoot either.
And then the caverns and holes may be hard to see because we're not looking through the crevices of the areas where they live. So, ooh, this is exciting. Yeah. But I have another theory, a story that happened.
All right.
This is in Cerro Azul, Panama. So this story happens that these kids, Cerro Azul, Panama City, these kids got really, really scared when they saw an unidentified creature heading their way. They were in the water. They panicked. They threw rocks and sticks thinking it was going to go away, and it didn't. So they fled the scene. And when they came back with the police and everybody to show them this mysterious creature that was going to eat them alive, they realized that it was actually a sloth that had fallen into the water. It didn't get out, or may have passed away from a tree, falling into the water, whatever it is. But it had gotten swollen. And they call it the Panama ET. So if you actually research it, you will find that it's not an alien, it's not an identified creature. It's actually a sloth.
Yeah, I've seen it because all the fur is off of it. So once the body got waterlogged, all the fur had fallen off of it, and then it got swollen from all the water. Yeah. They didn't you do like a washed up on the beach kind of cryptids video way back in the day? Is that right? Okay, all right.
Yep.
And you talk about the Montauk Monster and some of those other fun ones that are over on Undiscovered Worlds. So let's see. So there was sloths actually only get together to procreate, and they can only have one offspring per year, and they've never been found to have twins. So sloths actually, they don't perpetuate like very rapidly, but I don't think they're in any way endangered. So I do find that interesting. I didn't look up like how many sloths there are in the world or their endangered status or any of that. But once I read that they have no twins and they can only have one offspring a year, well, if you have 2 getting together that have one offspring, that means you're cutting your population in half every generation, essentially.
Pretty much.
And that's at maximum. So I was kind of curious. I didn't get an opportunity to look up. Maybe we'll do it in the after show. I'm gonna start Google.
There is actually an orphanage in Costa Rica, and I think it's starting to become more popular in the Latin countries. I know in Colombia we have sloths, and my family members, they have farms near where or country houses. They live in areas where the sloths live. So they are constantly moving them out of the road and making sure they're okay, because they get electrocuted by the electrical wire. So they fall and they can withstand the fall, but depends where they fall. If they fall on a highway, there's very little chance to help them. But there are a lot of organizations helping them out because they're so, they're hard reproducing. Like you said, the population is not moving really fast.
Yeah. I did come past that fact towards the bottom of my list. So a single sloth can be home to 980 different beetles in its fur, and they lay their eggs on the forest floor after the sloth moves its way down on its weekly adventure to go to the bathroom. And then they use the nutrition left over for their offspring. Marty, do you have any fun facts you want to share with us before we get into the trivia questions?
Well, we kind of talked about this when we talked about another video about elephants, but elephants and sloths are the only two that cannot jump. They don't have kneecaps, so on their hind legs enough to leave the ground. Hippos and rhinos can't jump either, but they do have all 4 feet off the ground while running. So it's not technically jumping, but the way they run, it's considered jumping.
We threw that at her as a trivia question back on a different video. So now she's working them in as facts. I love it. See, you learn, you register it.
But we didn't have sloths in the list.
No, I did. Because the video was about elephants, so sloths were the only other one other than exactly what you said, where hippos and rhinos leave the ground. But that's not technically like standstill vertical jumping. Not basketball player, like just standing under the rim, gonna dunk a basketball like that.
Okay, Kobe.
Well, oh, I wish. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about the fact that there are 2 different sloth species, but within each species, there's more. I don't know what the breakdown is below species. Classes?
It could be family classes. I can't remember the order.
So basically,
order, class.
So I think 2-toed, 3-toed is the one above species, because the way I'm going to phrase it is how many sloth species are there? So within 2-toed, there's a certain amount. Within 3-toed, there's a certain amount. You want to take a guess?
Sorry, I was too fast.
I can't see your fingers anyway. It's right where my camera is. So, though to everybody else, up until 3 weeks ago, you were correct, Maria.
No.
Now you are incorrect.
This is a good thing?
So there is 2 two-toed sloths. Oh, sorry. 2 two-toed sloths. And there was 4 three-toed sloths. And about a couple weeks ago, I read an article that they had taken one of the sloths, I think it was like the mountain 3-toed sloth or something, and broke it down into 2 different species now. They said there was enough distinct differences between these 2 animals. So the family of sloths has grown from 6
But it's the same because it was just subdivided, a subcategory.
Yeah, I know, but still.
It makes us feel better. 7
species. So 7 species now of sloths.
Raise the roof with the sloths.
You have any trivia questions, Marmar?
We actually talk about digestion. We talked about how long they sleep. No, I don't have a trivia. No. I'll leave it for the after show.
Okay, let's see. Where is this one? So Maria had already talked about the different cervical vertebrae. I'll just do it as a fact because I had it as a quiz. But all mammals actually have the same number of neck vertebrae, which is 7. And that includes giraffes. So they're just really big neck vertebrae. But there's 2 exceptions. One being the sloth, which Maria talked about. And because of the extra vertebrae, they're able to rotate their neck a lot more than we can. There is one more animal that is a mammal that does not have 7 neck vertebrae. You want to take a guess on what the other animal is, Maria?
That has 1 more or just not 7? It could have 6.
Less. It's not 7. All mammals are 7 with 2 exceptions.
Oh.
You said sloths, and there's 1 more.
Okay, the platypus counts as mammal? No, it doesn't.
No. I think it does. Yeah, it's the only mammal that lays eggs. I'm pretty
sure. But it's a hybrid. So
doesn't matter. I think it's 7 neck vertebrae. You've got 10 seconds. 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 10
I can't think. Oh, the anteater.
No, the manatee. The
Manatee.
manatee only has 6 neck vertebrae.
Oh,
Guys,
they don't
I hope
have a
you enjoyed
neck.
the
They
video.
really don't.
I hope you enjoyed the quizzes. I hope you clicked the subscribe button. And for all the Patreon subscribers, we're jumping into the after show. See you there.